The fastest way to destroy an elite army is not to make them bleed, it is to make them feel invincible. When a military force believes they are entirely unstoppable, they stop analyzing the landscape, they stop questioning their intelligence reports, they stop looking at their flanks. Every successful advance acts like a drug, rewiring the brain of the commanding staff until their perception of reality completely separates from the actual state of the dirt beneath their boots. The masterclass of asymmetric warfare is not found in a brilliant defensive stand, nor is it found in a crushing head-on cavalry charge. The true pinnacle of strategic control is the art of engineering your own minor defeats, deliberately losing just enough ground to feed an opponent's arrogance until they enthusiastically march straight into their own open grave. To understand how an entire army can be blinded by their own success, we have to look past the physical clash of steel and gunpowder. We have to dissect the cognitive architecture of victory itself. When a commander wins a battle, their internal model of the world is validated. If they order an advance and the enemy breaks, the human brain records a simple, dangerous lesson. Our strategy is flawless, and the enemy is weak. A brilliant strategist does not fight this psychological instinct, they exploit it. They present the enemy with a series of easy wins. They leave supply lines seemingly exposed. They stage chaotic, disorganized retreats that look identical to a panic-stricken rout. But this is not panic, it is spatial geometry disguised as chaos. Imagine a sprawling, multi-layered valley floor. The advancing army sees a fractured line of defenders pulling back in absolute disarray. To the aggressive mind, this is the definitive moment to strike, the golden opportunity to turn a minor retreat into a total rout. The order is given to press the advantage. Infantrymen break their tight interlocking defensive formations to sprint forward. The heavy cavalry spurs their horses into a full gallop, eager to claim the glory of the final blow. The entire army transitions from a structured, highly defensible machine into a hyper-extended, single-file column stretching miles across the valley floor. They believe they are chasing a broken remnant. In reality, they are transforming themselves into a massive, fragile thread, just waiting to be cut. This is where the micromechanics of the trap take hold. As the aggressive force surges forward, their lateral communication breaks down. The vanguard at the front of the line is moving too fast, completely separated from the heavy supply wagons and the rear guard miles behind them. The natural terrain, which once offered wide avenues of movement, begins to narrow. Steep ridges rise up on either side of the advancing column. The spatial geometry of the battlefield has completely inverted. The advancing force thinks they are compressing the enemy against a wall, but they have actually funneled their own massive numbers into a tight, restricted corridor where their superior size becomes an active liability. The psychology of the commander at this exact moment is a study in cognitive bias. Human beings suffer from a flaw known as confirmation bias, and in high-stakes environments it is lethal. When every scout report for the last 3 hours confirms that the defenders are running away, the commander filters out any anomalous data. A single scout reporting movement on the high ridges is dismissed as a ghost. A strange delay in the enemy's final collapse is interpreted merely as the final desperate gasps of a dying force. The commander's mind has already written the history of the battle before it has even finished. They are no longer reacting to the physical reality of the terrain. They are reacting to the narrative of triumph they have allowed themselves to believe. Then the trap snaps shut. The disorganized, retreating force suddenly stops running. In the span of a single heartbeat, the chaotic crowd turns, locks shields, and forms an immovable wall across the narrowest bottleneck of the valley. The forward momentum of the advancing army carries them violently into this sudden obstruction. The front ranks slam into the defensive wall, but the thousands of men behind them don't know what has happened. They keep pushing forward, driven by the sheer weight of their own momentum. The Dunningsikayage of the Ace, Kanisulukayes, Basridas Adikay Dothanatam Barut. The column begins to compress like an accordion, packing soldiers so tightly together they can no longer swing their weapons or draw their bows, and then the ridges speak. From the high ground on both sides of the suffocating column, the hidden reserves emerge. They do not face a coordinated defensive front. They look down upon a disorganized mass of choked, hyper-extended targets. The spatial mechanics of the corridor mean that the advancing army cannot turn to face this new threat without trampling their own men. The very size and power they relied on to achieve their early victories are now the precise mechanisms crushing them to death. The realization hits the commanding staff not as a slow understanding but as a sudden, paralyzing shock. The victories were an illusion. The retreats were a calculated invitation. Every step they took over the last 10 miles was dictated entirely by the mind of the man they thought they were defeating. This is the ultimate execution of strategic control. It requires supreme discipline to command soldiers to look weak, to order men to yield ground, and to watch an opponent celebrate an artificial triumph. Yet, the commander who can master this psychological manipulation controls the entire arc of the conflict. They don't need to match the enemy's numbers or outgun their artillery. They simply allow the enemy's own hubris to dictate their movements, transforming a proud, elite military force into a self-destructive engine. In the theater of war, the most dangerous position is never facing a dominant foe. The most dangerous position is standing on the field of victory, completely unaware that the ground beneath you was chosen by your enemy.